Today we're going to talk about how to excel in the first few months of your first developer job. This could really apply to any developer job that you take, but I think is especially relevant when it's your first job, and we're going to get into why in just a second. This video came at the suggestion of a subscriber, Tomas, so thank you so much, Tomas. And if you have more video ideas, things you'd like to see me make, then please feel free to comment below, and I'll try to make the videos that you guys want to see, and I like hearing from you, so I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so back to this video, we're going to talk about 6 things that you can do to really excel and stand out in your first developer job. Some of these are more relevant to your first job than others, and I'll point those out. But I think regardless, if you can implement even a few of these, you're gonna go a really long way. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the first strategy is to find a mentor. This is absolutely huge. There's been almost nothing for my career like learning from people that know more than I do. It's essential for learning and growth, and it's also a really good way to see how things are done in the company from somebody that ideally has more experience than you. Hopefully this could come in the form of pair programming if the company that you happen to work for has a culture of pairing. I would hope that they do, but even if they don't, you could ask, hey, can I sit next to you while you work on this feature? Or maybe if your company's remote, could we hop on a Zoom and maybe I could just watch you work through this particular feature, just to get a sense of how this person works. Hopefully it's not one-sided though. Hopefully this person is willing to give you feedback on your work as well. So another great way to learn is when people give you feedback. So hopefully it's going in both directions. You're seeing how they do things and they're giving you feedback on how you do things. That could come in the form of comments on a pull request, or maybe they sit next to your desk and just watch you as you go through the code base, as you make decisions, try to get a sense for your thought process and help you refine your thoughts. A mentor can also be a guide for how to navigate the company, how to hopefully get promotions and raises and more responsibility. Given that they've done those things, they're going to be able to give you a lot of information about how things work wherever you happen to be. There's a lot more to be said about mentors, but I'll leave it there for now. Suffice it to say, having a mentor is vitally important for your career growth inside and outside of a company. My second strategy is to contribute to the code base as soon as possible. There's a few different reasons for doing this. Number one, if you can come in on the first day and make a pull request that ideally fixes something or adds a feature, provides some kind of value, that's just gonna look super good. The fact that you could come in and get your bearings that quickly. It also serves as a kind of exposure therapy to just kind of go ahead and get working, get thrown in the code base and start trying to figure things out. That can be a really valuable learning experience in and of itself, but there can be a temptation to just kind of hang back and kind of dip your toe in gradually over time. But I would say just jump into the deep end and get going. That's gonna be a lot better for your learning, your growth, and the value that you're providing. A good place to start is with a bug. I know on projects that I've worked on, a lot of times when we have new developers join the team, we will pick out a few bugs for them to work on just to get a sense of how things work, the business logic, the way the code base is set up, and all that kind of thing. So if you don't know where to start, then I would say ask somebody on your team, hey, is there a good first bug that I could tackle just to go ahead and get working in the code? Speaking of fixing bugs, my third strategy is to fix something or innovate. And the thinking behind this is that there's always some kind of process or part of the code base or way things are done that are less than ideal. That can be a bug that just hasn't gotten high enough priority to get fixed but is consistently annoying, or a process that is kind of broken but people just deal with, but there's a lot of friction. Because you're new, you're gonna have fresh eyes and you're going to be really attuned to those kind of things, which means that you're gonna have a great opportunity in front of you to fix those things. Like I mentioned, these are technical and non-technical, but a few technical examples could be adding CI/CD, or fixing a failing test suite, or adding tests to a part of the code base that isn't tested and tends to have a lot of bugs. It could be refining the process for getting approval for a professional development budget or going to conferences. It could be introducing a new way of doing stand-ups. Really anything is fair game here, so I would say just keep your eyes open for things that seem suboptimal and suggest improvements, and eventually one will stick and you'll be providing value in a whole new way. My fourth strategy is to share your knowledge. So some companies that I've been at have this kind of baked in. We call it a lunch and learn sometimes, where basically the engineering team would have kind of once a month or once every other week lunches where someone would share on a technical topic. I think these are great opportunities because they tend to give you credibility. I've talked in the past about how speaking automatically lends you this air of credibility and that you know what you're talking about. Even if you really just researched whatever the topic is for the presentation, it just gives everyone the impression that you know what you're talking about. It could also lead to speaking locally, which has been a huge benefit in my career. I've talked about that in the past as well. But regardless, this is a good thing to do. There are other ways to share knowledge. It could be as simple as pinging the engineering Slack channel and saying, hey, we just solved this tricky bug or implemented this tricky feature, and here's how we did it, either with a code snippet or just a small description. Another way of sharing what you know is sharing what you're learning. So Swix has this great saying of creating learning exhaust. So this could be screencasts or YouTube videos or blog posts or tutorials. The more you can do that and capture what you're learning and package it in a way that's accessible for people, the more value you'll be able to provide, not only in your company, but also all across the world because of the internet. So whatever you're learning, either at work or outside of work, find a way to share that. My fifth strategy is to find a signature area or initiative that you can own. So you could be the testing person or the automation person or the TypeScript person or the security person. I've been in varying companies where people had managed to kind of carve out a niche for themselves, and oftentimes it came down to something that needed to exist that didn't. Back to my third point of innovating and finding something to fix. A lot of times finding that thing to fix turns into an area that you just end up owning. Inside companies, things like that have a way of snowballing where you fix one thing and then people end up coming to you in the future when they have similar problems, and then over time you end up developing expertise and kind of being in charge of whatever that thing is. This is great because you have a niche, you have an area that you can own, and it is a unique way to provide value where you wouldn't be easily replaced. It also, like all of these things, is great for your learning, so I would highly recommend that. And my sixth strategy is to start a private internal newsletter. Now, I got this from Sean Purry, who is one of my favorite people on the internet. He has a podcast called My First Million, and he wrote a great Twitter thread about how to stand out in a big company. And this was basically his advice in the thread, was to start a private newsletter. What he did is he started a newsletter, he sent it out every Sunday, he copied James Clear's format where James Clear has a 3-2-1, Sean calls it the 1-2-3. It was basically one quote, 2 links, and then 3 of something else, can't quite remember. But the point is there are tons of formats for newsletters out there. What he did is he automatically added the executive team. So the executive team was getting these emails every week, and it was just a way for him to stand out. Basically, Sean ended up telling them, hey, I used to send an email to my close advisors and mentors, and I consider you my close advisors and mentors, and so I'm going to continue that here. After a while, he gave them the chance to opt out, but 75% of the people ended up staying on. The good thing about this is it's easy and it scales, and if you can find interesting stuff or come up with interesting ideas, it'll really shine through. So I'll go ahead and link that Twitter thread below. It's worth reading on its own. So those are my 6 strategies for excelling in the first few months of your first developer job. It doesn't just pertain to the first few months though. If you can continually do these kinds of things, then there's no question you will rise in whatever organization you happen to be in. Maybe finding a mentor isn't quite as relative if you're very senior, but I think really all these things, maybe aside from that, could apply at any point in your career. So that's it. I hope you found this helpful. Please take me up on my offer. Comment below. What do you want to see from me? I'd love to make the videos that you want to see. And if you're still here, you'd probably like the rest of my channel, which focuses on code, self-improvement, and personal finance. So please consider subscribing. Regardless, thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.